Welcome back to another episode of Growth Vertical. Today we're joined by Emeric Ernoult. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The co-founder and CEO of Agorapulse, who grew the company to 20 million in revenue and without any external funding, right? And pioneered groundbreaking features in the social media management space, specifically the first ever social media inbox and also some ROI tracking tools, something that B2B marketers have been burning to get as part of their arsenal. And today we're going to actually chat about practical social media ROI and turning social activity into revenue. So, welcome, Emeric. It's great to have you on the podcast. I know that when came across you and learned a bit about you, did some research, and obviously our chat before. It's pretty interesting how Agorapulse has like that sort of that leeway into a sector where people sort of move away from or just glance at, but they don't realize how impactful it could be long term for revenue, right? Because social media, as you can imagine, is treated like just, hey, let's just add this to our marketing mix and let's just stick to our standard metrics like likes, engagements, which we'll go through in a bit. But it's great to have you for here for an important topic. But before we get into it, we kind of want to hear a bit about you. It'd be great to have everyone hear about you. What's your story and how did you get into social media management? That would be pretty interesting to know.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be here. I'm a marketer by trade. At least I've been a marketer by trade the past 25 years, and I'm also a founder. So, like, I have of a B2B company. So,
Right.
I kind of feel at home here. My background to make to make that very long story short, so people don't fly away. I'm a lawyer. I'm an MLA lawyer. That's what I did from 1995 to 2000. Started my first business in 2000, failed for a long, long time, and started the second business, Agorapulse, on the dead body of the first business. Well,
Oh, okay.
basically using the MRR of the first business that was very low. It was 150K at the time, a year, and we use that MR. I think the good thing with SaaS is that it's recurring, and even though you stop selling and marketing something, if you have customers, they're going to stick around for months, often years, and you can use that revenue to build something else if you need to pivot. So we pivoted to Agorapulse at the end of 2011. And we pivoted Agorapulse twice. It was a contest and promotions on Facebook when we started in 2011.
Right.
And obviously, as you know today, it doesn't do that anymore. Like, there's none of that in the business.
No.
It was very high churn business, very bad business. Great to get started, but bad in terms of sustainability and health, financial health. And yeah, we moved to a social media full blown social media management. But because we are bootstrapped and we had three developers between 2011 and 2016 or 15, it
Yeah.
took some time to get to a point of breaking even and growing fast and all these things. So I think we broke. No, I don't think. I know we broke even in at the end of 2015. That's all. And since then, we've been profitable.
Yeah. I mean, Agorapulse actually works with some big brands, right? We have like
Yeah.
Ogilvy and people
Some.
like that on your Arsenal, right? So, but it's I can imagine it just has such a wide use, right? So multiple markets can make use of it. You don't have to be in a particular industry, excuse me, to make the most out of a platform like this. But there's a very intentional use that comes out of using something like Agorapulse, right?
Yep.
Um, and there must have been. I know you mentioned that you sort of like you went into Agorapulse after the back end of your previous business, and you did it differently in the beginning. But was there like certain problem that you guys were looking to, that itch that you're looking to scratch at one point
Yeah.
in order to build
So as a
Agorapulse?
bootstrap business, the itch was always, how can we survive? That was my itch. I was scratching.
Yeah.
What do I need to do so I have a
How do I
viable
make it
business that
profitable?
like
Yeah.
that help me make payroll at the end of the month and survive? So the early choices was always that. But obviously, if you want to survive, guess what? You have to provide a valuable service to an audience who wants to buy it. So at
Yep.
the end of the day, you have to solve a big problem for a lot of people so you have a viable business. So actually, wanting to survive as an entrepreneur and building a good business that solves a big problem usually work together. And the problem we saw early on was that Facebook. at the time was very expensive. Doing things on Facebook was very expensive, so we platformized stuff that we used to do as an agency. And then we saw a second problem is that for social media managers is that social media was very, very chaotic at the time in 2012, 13. You may or may not remember, I don't know, but social media management tools at the time were Hootsuite and TweetDeck
Yeah.
mostly, and there were columns, like dozens and dozens of columns. You wanted to listen to to the DM of that Facebook page, one column. Oh,
Yeah.
the DMs of that other Facebook page are another column, and the mention of this Twitter, another column, and the keyword of whatever, another column. At the end of the day, if you had, let's say you're a franchisor and you have 10, 55 Facebook pages and 55 Instagrams, for the DMs of all of these accounts, you already have 110 columns. And then for the comments, another 110. So that's 220 columns you have to check. It was crazy nuts. And we came
Yeah.
up with this idea that, people use email, they understand email, it's chronological, it's all one inbox. Social should behave the same, and that's the first thing we invented at the time, the first need we identified.
Yeah.
And from there we kept talking to our customers. I said, okay, well, where's the pain? Where do you suffer the most? And since 2021, well, it's always been our obsession that we wanted social media work to be valuable. I remember our homepage in 2011, even though it was games, contest, and promotion on Facebook, said, your Facebook fans aren't worth anything unless you know who they are. So we were already very focused on, if you're talking to strangers on Facebook, what's the point? Especially if you're a B2B business, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, all my Facebook fans are grandma from Ohio and I'm selling to businesses in the UK. It's not going to help me.
No.
So that was the claim. Obviously, it was linked to games, promotion, sweepstakes, and stuff like that. So it was completely different. But it's always been an obsession of mine and of ours. How can we create more value for the people who are the marketers who are working on social? How can they actually see and touch the impact they're having on the business? And in 2021, we filed a patent on the ROI measurement feature and report that we had built. That's basically helping you track what kind of conversion you get, and obviously revenue, if you can get up to revenue, depending on the price point of what you're selling. If you're selling a $5 a pop thing, then you can track revenue from every single Facebook post that you publish. But if you're selling a 50K a year thing, it's probably unlikely that you're going to have revenue from a Facebook post. But we patented that, and we started to promote that, and since then, every feature is always going through the filter of, how is this going to help marketers have impact and prove impact? And that's, we can go through features. I don't think that's really interesting, but every single time I'm like, okay, how can that help improve impact and prove it? And that's always been my filter, my lens to look at the problem we want to solve.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're working towards the idea of actually simplifying such a noisy environment, right? And making it very manageable for a marketer, which, by the way, we have, like, even me, we have just tons of problems, right? With managing social media accounts. It's one of the noisiest marketing mix environments that you'd ever have to ever deal with, simply because of the amount of content, one, the amount of metrics you could look at, two, but the amount of pressure that we get to tie in that activity into revenue at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, like, intro. I think it's really interesting how far you guys have come, considering the evolution of Agorapulse as well, and from what you started in the back in the day. But I think, let's sort of get into it. First things I think I wanted to discuss was the building out that sort of practical social media system, the attribution system specifically. And one of the things, as you can imagine, and you probably hear every day, is attribution, that piece that you're talking about. If you're selling something for $5, it might be easier to track, right? But for B2B and SaaS software companies, or even anyone with a longer sales cycle, why is this attribution so challenging? Like, why have you guys seen that it's so challenging, opposed to the amount of content or channels you have to manage?
Yeah, there are several answers to this question. The high level answer, why is attribution and tracking in general so challenging? The super high level that applies to every business. I'm speaking with, there are very few exceptions. There are some exceptions, but very few. For most businesses, they do not have their data lake and tracking infrastructure in place. They simply do not track things. And you'd be amazed at how many businesses, and I probably wouldn't be surprised if it was 90% of them, who are not tracking the right things with the right tools and doing what needs to be done so that tracking works. And if that is not in place, the problem is not social media attribution or social media and how social media contributes to things. It's like you're simply not measuring things. So you're not going to know whether it's email or paid or social media. Well, paid, you're going to kind of know, because on the paid software, whether it's Meta or LinkedIn or whatever, there will be a report that will tell you a number of clicks, number of whatever, and conversion if you have a pixel and that kind of stuff. So there you're going to have something, but it still is going to be a very imperfect and lacking thing. Like, you will lack a lot of stuff, because if people click and don't take immediate action, but then come back later and take other actions, if your tracking system is not in place, you're not going to know that this ad generated this. So number one is the tracking is not in place. The data is wrong. The data is, there are duplicates. There are issues with the data that's being tracked. The data lake, however you call that, like where you gather all the data from all your systems and put it clean so you can retrieve it and then put it against whatever is happening on Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever CRM and marketing automation you're using, or social media. That's wrong. And it's a very, very expensive thing to do. It's a very complex thing to do. As of today, we have a 5-person data team. What 20 people, B2B company or 25 or 50 has a 5-person data team? None. If they have a 1-person data team, they're lucky. So it usually starts there. It's like you need to invest in a framework and an infrastructure to have the ability to measure and attribute. If you have not done that, don't dream. You won't be able to attribute or measure anything. Not anything, but you can still do stuff with Google Analytics 4 and GT and Tag Manager and the basics. But the super dream of I know everything that's happening to me digitally is not going to happen. So that's number one. And number two is that people don't have a clear understanding of how attribution and measurement works. And they have like a wishful thinking, a magic thought about, attribute, some kind of magic tool is going to come in and solve the attribution and the measurement tracking problem for me. That's not true. No, there's no magic tool out there. And the tracking is going to be done based on links, and it's going to be done based on your website having the right JavaScripts and the right technical stuff. So those links those clicks that arrive to your site, this traffic that arrives to your site is read. Oh, I know where. Oh, this is coming from this. This is the link, the UTM, the tracking parameters you're using, whatever. And they're going to be able to keep that in memory, usually using some sorts of JavaScript. So it stays as the visitor watch different pages and do different things on your site, and then eventually do something and convert into something. And if you don't understand that, and you're not consistently ensuring that everything you share with the world, whether it's an email, whether it's an ad, whether it's a webinar promo on a LinkedIn thought leadership ad, or your own post, whatever that is, if you're not consistently making sure that all of that is clean and can be read and can be understood by your team when it gets back to your site, then there's no tracking or attribution that's visible. And when you think about social media, the specific challenge with social media, on the link side, social media, email, ads, same combat, same thing. You need to have the link solved. But the problem with social media is that some of the value, a lot of the value of social media is not in the link and the click. It's in the engagement. It's in the trust you build. It's in that kind of stuff. You don't really have that with email. Well, you have open and read, right? You could argue that an email opened but not clicked has some value. The person saw me. I built a little bit of more trust. Maybe the content in my email was interested. So, and that you cannot measure. You can measure opens of the emails, and even if they didn't have clicks, and give some value to that. But you're not going to be able to track actually track and attribute what was the value of that person opening that email. Oh, don't know. You just have to be sure that to be convinced that the content of the email, if it was read, brought value for sure. So I'm confident in that. And that's the most challenging thing with social media is there's a lot that's happening that has value, but it's absolutely not trackable. Like someone liking one of your LinkedIn posts, you will never be able to recoup that in Salesforce or
Yeah.
HubSpot. It's impossible. It's technically impossible. Where someone opening an email, you will be able to recoup that in Salesforce and HubSpot. So that is the specific challenge with social, is that some of the valuable stuff the audience is going to do with your content, with what you do on that channel, is never going to be visible to your system, to your measuring and attribution and tracking system.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's an interesting point that you made there to paint the picture that social platforms are almost treated. And like you mentioned, even if you have an ad platform, the thing is all these systems are fragmented. So you're never really feeding them into a single CRM. And just to elaborate on what you mentioned earlier, like people aren't doing it. There's people that are trying to do it as well, but they're still using a spreadsheet. And I see them copy pasting engagement figures, likes, that sort of thing onto these spreadsheets with date formats and everything, but nothing happens after that. Why? Because it's hard to use static numbers to just be like, oh, okay, this is fantastic. With the amount of data you have to look at, there's no way you're going to glean any insights from a spreadsheet with tons and tons of numbers as a single person, especially when you have to input those numbers, copy paste them from the platform every day, and then also try and aggregate different things to see what insights there are, etc. You have to really manage things. And I think that's the problem. Like I even see people they have a CRM like HubSpot, but they still haven't connected their ad platforms or anything like that. Just something so simple,
Yeah.
right? So they're unable to track that. So where do you think people can start by like sort of making the improvement right today? Like where what direction do you think they should be looking at? Is it that they should be looking at maybe ensuring that they use something as simple as like UTMs, right?
Yeah.
Or is it too specific?
No,
Is it
no,
just as simple as
yeah, no, it's not too specific. It's actually a very good starting point.
yeah,
Learn UTMs. They're quite simple to learn, and learn Google Analytics, and learn how to create conversion events on your website using Tag Manager. It's we've a $20 course on Udemy. You can learn all these things. Someone in my team just did that in less than a month because I told her, hey, you need to learn GTM and Google Analytics. Here are the courses on Udemy. Go ahead. And after a month, she's able to create any kind of good Google Analytics report that you could create. And she's able to say, oh, that video view needs to be tracked on Tag Manager because I need to know if that ad campaign is going to generate video view, or that Facebook post is going to generate that video view. It's a short video demo we created for our website. And she did that on GTM, and now we're able to see, okay, how many video views did we get? We didn't have free trials, we didn't have demo requests because it's high commitment, but we want them to watch that 2-minute video to build trust. How many of them did we get? Oh, we got 120. Wow, it's amazing, incredible. And she was able to build all of that herself. So that's where people should start. Again, you don't have a data team like I do. You don't have a data lake like I do. Learn Google Analytics it's free. Learn Google Tag Manager, it's free. Have that on your website. Tag your website with all the conversion events that are meaningful to you, and start measuring with UTMs and GA4 what kind of activity drives what kind of valuable conversion on my site, and start connecting the dots and learn from there. Obviously, because I'm so passionate about that, I embedded all of that in a Agora Pulse. So now if you as a CEO promote a webinar on your LinkedIn, we're going to tell you how many subscribers to that webinar that LinkedIn post got you. And if you ask your team to go and share that on their own LinkedIn, we're going to tell you how many webinar subscription you got from that. We automate that, but you could do that on your own with GA4 and with mastering GA4 and Google Tag Manager. You don't need a tool. It's time consuming. It needs to be learned, but you don't necessarily need a tool.
And now there are free tools out there, right? They don't need to go for the most complex tools straight away. They can use Google Analytics, or Google actually provides you with a URL, UTM builder, right, on a website, which I can probably find and link for the audience too,
Mm.
right? And I wanted to simplify that even further. So one day I remember I created a UTM builder, and it didn't take me long. But now I could just create UTM tracking links whenever I fancy it, if a platform doesn't support it. So
Yeah.
just force it. But I think that's actually good for smaller businesses to know what you just mentioned, because you can actually set it up. And actually nowadays, setting up Google Tag Manager, like pasting tags, tracking tags, that sort of thing, a lot of it is just copy paste into certain sections, because
Yeah.
most things are UI based. So if you're logging into a platform, there's likely going to be something in the settings that says, hey, could you just paste your tag in and we'll do the rest, right? On
Yeah.
our platform can sort it out the rest.
It absolutely can be done by a marketer. Once your website person or your technical person inserted the Google Tag Manager snippet on your website, everything else is on you. I mean, you can learn it and you can do it yourself. You don't have to be technical.
Yeah. I kind of want to dive into like the idea behind, you mentioned likes as well, right, as one of the metrics, but do you, that probably goes hand in hand with the idea or the notion that, marketers still get some things wrong when they're tracking attribution for these, because they're looking at likes and engagements. Like, are there any metrics that you think marketers should be focused on, or founders should be focused on, based off of what they're trying to achieve?
I mean, when we post on social, the first thing we do, the very, very, very first thing we do is we make darn sure that what we post is interesting. And that is also something most businesses fail at.
They just try and copy paste something.
They just create content that's uninteresting, that
Yeah.
nobody wants to read. And my test is always, when we create something, is like, am I proud enough about this thing that we created that I will put it in an email and send it to my best friend and say, hey, look, we just published that, you should read it.
Yeah.
Assuming my best friend is B2B marketer and has the same passion as I have.
Yeah.
Would I be proud enough? So I would take that and send it to someone I know who is in our target audience and say, hey, we just posted that. It took us hours to get where we got and create that piece of content. It's really good. You should read it. That is the standard I'm trying to have for our content team. And it's hard. I mean, we don't achieve that standard every single time, but that is the aim. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Once you and obviously that will force you to prioritize quality over quantity 100% of the time. Once you are achieving that or close to, or once in a while, or every two pieces of content, one out of two, you're super proud, it's an amazing one. Then whether it's an email or it works for social media, but it work for any channel. You want to share it with the world and make it more visible. So let's say you don't have a lot of followers on LinkedIn. You probably want to do a thought leadership ad with your post on LinkedIn to promote this, to get more juice of that on that thing. You want to post about, tell the story of that piece of content and put a link to, this is where you can get it. Or like, put yes in the comment and I'll send it to you, whatever method. And then when they do yes in the comment and DM you, then you use the link in the DM. But you really want to do something where people can actually go and ask for the thing, whether it's through social interactions or by clicking on a link and go downloading the thing. And then you can easily measure how many downloads do we get, how many views do we get, how many signups do we get, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, whether it's on social or, again, any other channel, what is your ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is to provide super interesting content that's very connected to the problem I solve, to the audience I'm trying to attract. That's a very simple ultimate goal, but every B2B business should think about this every single time they do something marketing-wise. And obviously, the problem you solve can be at several different heights of the funnel. If it's super high, it's usually an educational problem. I want to solve a problem of learning, of knowing more, of being a better professional. And then you super tofu or top of the funnel,
Yeah.
education, understanding my industry, the trends, the different things I need to know, how much people like me are paid, like that kind of stuff. And then you have all the stuff that's related to, what you could call, I don't like tofu, bofu, mofu, or top, middle, bottom of the funnel. The way I describe it to my team and my marketers is like, at the top, you have the education, the industry trends, like information. We're providing interesting information and education. At the middle, we're explaining how we can solve the problems they have, how the problem they have can be solved, and we include ourselves in the mix. So we're not trying to tell them buy us, buy us, buy us. Say, oh, you have this problem. Oh, yeah, we know you guys. You're a B2B marketer. We know what's your problem. On social media, your problem is trying to win alone is never going to work. You need your employees to help you. You need employee advocacy. You need influencers to help you. You need ambassadors to help you. And these are the solutions that are at your disposal um, um, to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And we are one of them. And I think we're the best, but there are others. And if you want others, some of them are free. Here's where you can find them and how you can use them. Here's the video, here's the training. Wow, super interesting. Now they want to help me solve my problem. They're not trying to sell me, but I kind of got the message that they are a potential solution. That's the middle of the funnel, we call that. And then the bottom of the funnel is that they are looking for a solution.
Yeah.
And they know you exist, but there are alternatives, and they're wondering if they should choose you or they should choose them. And then that content is very much, this is how we compare. This is why we're the best. This is why you should go with us.
Yeah.
Those are the three different types of content that people can create and share on social. And obviously, the best content to share on social is the top and the middle, like the first two. The third is not really good for a social media strategy. And unless you target people who like your competitors, you can do that too.
You just gave away a free strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And what we do is like we take those number one and number two type of content, and we say, what is the most interesting thing that we can teach them now about that problem that we solve, or that education that they need to get, and make that and promote that with a link that leads to the thing that we can track, that's going to tell us, did they consume it, and if they did, what happened to them after that.
And this ultimately helps you, I guess, connect the dots to identify, that revenue generating social content that
Yeah,
we're talking about for
absolutely.
anyone with B2B software, B2C software, whatever it is, right? So
Do you know a LinkedIn influencer called Justin Welsh? Does that ring a bell?
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
He was one of the first LinkedIn influencers. Every time he posts something on LinkedIn, he has 700 likes or 800
Yeah.
likes or whatever. He posts every day. Is very consistent. Is a B2B marketer. He used to be a VP of sales for a company that sells to doctors, Pop Doc, I think, something like that. He used to
Yeah.
coach one of my salesperson, and he posts every day on LinkedIn. It's advice for people who want to build their own business as solopreneurs and information, entrepreneurs. And there's always a link in his post. Always, every single post has a link, and we track those links. And every of those links, they get newsletter subscribers, they get people landing on the product page, and they get people buying the product every single day. And that works really well. But his content is good. If you're in a job you don't like and you're thinking about, I want to start my own thing, I want to be a consultant, a freelancer like you want to follow him, and you're inspired by everything he writes. That's the hard
Yeah.
part. It's creating the inspiring, interesting content. And here there's a link that I'm going to explain all of that to you in my training, $200, whatever it is. And there's a link every single time you convert and you do business. I don't know how many $1 million he makes a year on his own with this strategy, but it does work.
I think the figures changed now, but I'm pretty sure I saw a 300 million, right? Like, no, well, probably it was a lot, right? And I know that recently there was a post or something that it was just stupid money, and I was just thinking, this is because he knows his system. That's what it
Yeah,
is. He knows his system, and
yeah, the system. Yeah.
and he tests new things. That's what
Mm.
it is. It's not just bread and butter. It's things that he's promoted into his content funnel, and he's saying,
Yeah.
okay, here's what we've tested. Here's what we're something different we're producing, and if it works well, great. We're going to use that. People seem to like this. It's more valuable for them,
Mm.
and then you just demote the thing that's less valuable, right? If it's
Yeah.
not going to be, it's not going to fit party funnel. I think that's what you mentioned about just. I still am, like, how to say it? I still am a fan of the whole top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, but only
Mm.
to use it intentionally. So what I do is with anyone I'm working with, fine, let's call it those three things, But what we're going to really do here is we're going to also map the types of content we're going to produce in these areas and the why. There needs to be a reason why we produced it. And if the reason doesn't fit that part of the funnel, then then it has to go out. If it doesn't, if it does fit that part of the funnel, then it stays in. But you're right. Like, I think when you're saying sell, 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 bottom of funnel content every single time, it's a big turnoff. Not really. People might not even know you. You haven't really followed the journey, so you're just bombarding people that might have seen you for the first time, and you're saying asking them to buy. But you need to tell them about the problem, right? Tell them
Yeah.
about if you're a trailblazer in your market, then how could you actually tell them about this problem they don't even know about, right? Why don't you lean into the problems of that area, then go into the problem itself, then go into how to solve it. And I think there's that systematic approach, isn't there, to walking someone down to the most valuable part. Like, here is your solution, but it all starts from that, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and the reason I don't like tofu, mofu, bofu is very
Yeah,
simple: is that people put different meanings
I agree.
behind them,
Yeah,
and they don't agree on what they mean. And I've always had a trouble with acronyms when people don't have a common understanding of what each acronym means. And I've heard marketers, content marketers from my team come with different explanation. Oh, what is mofu? And then that person says this, and this person says that, and they're absolutely not the same thing. So
no,
that's why I decided to describe them in plain English. Okay, the first level is education and industry
education.
knowledge. The second
Yes.
level is problem they have and there are solutions. We are one of them. And the third is how we compare to the different solutions on the market. One of them being, could be Excel or a spreadsheet or a free or a pen and paper. It doesn't matter. Or a VA in India. It doesn't matter. Like, your solution is not, your competition is not always a competitor as you see them. It can be status quo, while doing things manually and natively on social media, for example, as far as we are concerned. And that's this is bottom of the funnel, like you said.
Yeah,
Again, yeah.
I agree. I think everyone should have the intentional exercise of, yeah, okay, even if you do use those frameworks, just make sure you map them into their respective areas and make sure the entire team's aligned and everyone knows why we're producing this asset or in the
Yeah.
first place, right? I know there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know if you've seen this as well, Emeric, but there's a lot of people that are like, oh God, another white paper. Like, do I have to read another white paper? The problem is, I think it's the way that marketers are looking at it, right? Like, they're seeing it as we're going to produce the same thing over and over again, but they don't realize that the value behind it might actually be really interesting for your audience. So it's not the white paper that's the problem; it's what people are
What's in
putting
there?
in the white paper. Yeah, that was the problem, not the white paper itself, right?
100%.
I just think
I
when
am reading white papers when they
yeah,
are really, really
really
good.
good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still do too.
Yeah. And I am attending webinars when the topic is like, oh, I really want to know more about this. So, and it's a hard thing to do. Don't get me wrong. Getting amazing content is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be a billionaire.
Yeah.
But it's really it's a pursuit really worth doing.
How do you think brands should be or companies should be balancing, right? Like, sort of the brand side of things, so brand building content versus just the lead generation content, right? You mentioned the bottom of funnel doesn't really work, right,
Yeah.
all the time, but is there a blend that people should be aiming for, or is there a certain mindset or systematic approach that people should be focused on?
Um, I,
It's a bit of
my,
a loaded
yeah,
question.
yeah, it is, but I want to say something useful. So my system to address this is always, if you're starting from scratch, or if you're starting from, you don't really know what you're doing, and you're just, okay, I need to get better at this. I need to start doing things.
Yeah,
Always start at the bottom of the funnel. Always start by, okay, there's competition. Who are we compared with? Where is this comparison happening? Usually in Google SEO, like, search.
yeah,
How can I seize that? And how can I lead this to a place where I'm providing value? Let me give you a very simple, basic example. Agorapulse versus Sprout Social types every day, or Sprout Social alternatives. People search for that every day, or Hootsuite, or Sprinkler, or Brandwatch, like all the competition.
yeah,
If you're capturing this traffic and you're leading them to a sign up page or a demo request page, potential outcome very low,
yeah,
very, very low. If you lead them to, here's an asset that will help you make the right choice in your discovery for those tools. Here's the list of features. If you're a B2B business, you want to do social media, and you're hesitating between all this infinite list of potential tools
Yeah.
that all tell you they're the best, and they're an amazing UI, and they have an amazing support, and they're amazing product, and they're ranking number one on G2, and whatever the fuck it is that they sell. If you provide them, here are the actual questions you should ask the vendors or the salespeople when you'll do the demo. Because if you're a B2B business, these things are essential for you to win. And here's a template spreadsheet on Google Spreadsheet for free that you can take and capture and duplicate to make it your own.
Yeah.
Or here's a white paper or an ebook that explains in detail why all the features that you should look for as a B2B business are important. And that's going to give you a full, if you're new to this game, it's going to give you the full spectrum of what you need to have in the back of your mind when you're doing those demos and the kind of questions you need to ask them, and so on and so forth. If you do that, well, you're going to start capturing leads. And what are those leads? They're hot as heck because they're actually looking at your competition, trying to compare, and so on and so forth. And that strategy alone is going to take you 6 months to build, because the content, understanding, discussing with prospects, really have a super clear, okay, this is what they want. This is the kind of spreadsheet they are using already. We had that. I'm taking this ID because that's something we took from discussions with prospects. They were already using spreadsheets to compare tools. So we say, interesting. That's a tool they're using. We can provide it to all of them, but make it super good.
Yeah.
If that's the only marketing you're doing, you're already doing amazing marketing. Once you've nailed your bottom of the funnel, then you can go up a notch and say, okay, now we can move up the ladder. Now we can think of, okay, what are the problems that they keep telling us they have on doing those conversations that Gong is recording, or whatever software you're using to record your sales calls? What is this? And now with AI, it's so easy to know about that now, that if you're not doing it, you're silly.
Yeah.
And then start, based on that customer data or prospect data, start building the content that they are telling you that they're struggling with. And again, do one piece a month, but an amazing one. And then another, and then another. It will feel small and long, and oh my God, one piece a month. But in a year, you'll have 12 amazing pieces of content. And that is so great. So it's also important to be patient and accept that these things are going to take time, but once you've built them, they have momentum. They will keep building up and building up and building up.
I think that sort of brings me into like that, integrating that social media piece, right? So integrating social media into the broader marketing funnel, because when you produce these 12 assets, let's say, that's more that you've added to your armory for social media. And people don't understand that they don't need to spin up something completely brand new. They can make something they've got existing in, just repackage it into a social format, which is valuable, easy to consume, and fits on the platform, right? With maybe the consumer habit, right, of how people like to consume content on, let's say, LinkedIn versus Facebook, etc.
Yeah.
So how do you see social media? And most people probably already know the answer because it's self-explanatory, but how should social media sort of fit into that overall marketing mix for the early stage companies when they've gone and produced all these assets?
Yeah, for an early stage company, I am not sure social media should necessarily be part of the mix. It can be, or it may not be the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
I think the criteria to decide on that is how you, if you're the founder or the co-founders, how you as co-founders enjoy using social media for your own fun. Like, do you enjoy LinkedIn? Or every time you go on LinkedIn, it's a chore. And you're like, oh my God, I gotta go on LinkedIn, answer those and say thank you or comment or whatever. If that's how you feel and you're an early stage startup, probably forget social media for now.
Yeah.
Because your energy has to be high on the things you do, and you have to have things are going to be so difficult that you have to have a high level of passion for what you do day in and day out. Otherwise, you're going to give up. So
Agreed.
Don't do things that are boring you, or that are counterintuitive to you, or that are anti-natural to you. I was very much into social media early on, so I was using social to be myself, to talk about my journey, to share our metrics, our numbers, our growth, like basically to build trust with, hey, we're embarking in this building a business journey, and I'm sharing it with you, and it worked quite well. As of today, because we've moved up market and now we're more selling to the enterprise and the mid market, it's less relevant for me to do that on social media. So I've changed my habits, but early on, that worked really well for me. But I was comfortable with content, blogs. I post almost all of the blog posts that we post at the time, creating content, and I had a knack for knowing what good content would be and what not so good content would be. So I think we did pretty well thanks to that.
Yeah.
If you are not familiar with, if you're not comfortable with that, then find the thing you're comfortable in. If it's paid, do paid. If it's cold outreach and cold calling, very few people are comfortable with cold calling. But if that's your thing, do that. Don't do social because you have to. Do social because you enjoy doing it. That would be my advice to a young startup with a starting business. Now, if you have a more mature business, social media is a channel like email, like paid ads on LinkedIn, paid search, like all these other channels, and
Yeah.
it's as important as all the channels. We're in 2025; it's scattered out there in terms of marketing. There's no one channel that does it all. It used to be the case in 2001, but it's
Yeah.
not the case
Not
anymore.
anymore.
I think an email strategy was all it took to have a successful business in 2006, but it's absolutely impossible in 2025. So you have to include social media in the mix and see how you can make it play a role that's going to be significant enough. And that's why I'm passionate about what we're building and the problem we're trying to solve, because we are making this as easy as it can be and pushing in that direction.
So when someone adds social media right to their mix,
Hmm.
what parts of the customer journey do you think that they should be focused on influencing the most using that? Because they've got to be very intentional with their efforts, right? And obviously, social media has an impact on, let's say, we already mentioned that top of funnel, middle of funnel
Yeah,
area.
for me that's top and middle. That's where it's going to work best. Just to give you a couple of examples, so we're releasing a new feature about social media and web listening that we've been working on for 2 years, and it's currently being released and stuff. And social media is an entire part of the strategy of us promoting a webinar
Yeah,
where we go very deep into why you should do it, the use cases, how brands win with this, the different reasons why you should listen, what you should listen to, the options you have, the different solutions, the free, the little bit expensive, the very expensive, of course, and how we fit into that. Again, that's what I
yeah,
told you earlier. And that webinar is being promoted every freaking where. Obviously via email, obviously via in-app message to our trials and client and customers, obviously via our HubSpot database of all the leads that we've had for years and years and years that are still active and open to communicating with us. Paid, obviously, on LinkedIn as well, but thought leadership ad with my post, my organic post, my team's organic post, and I have a team of 170 people now. So when we leverage the team, obviously we get more power than when
yeah,
it's the
absolutely.
company or just me. And not one of those things is going to win at making us known for a company that now does web and social media listening.
Yeah,
But all of them combined, they're pretty powerful and they're pretty effective. And I think our webinar now has like 600 registrant, which is quite good for a
yeah.
webinar. And again, if we had only done email or only done LinkedIn ads or only done one of those things, we probably would have 120 or something. So
That's insane. But I think it shows. I think it's a testament to how connected your marketing efforts need to be, right? And it's supposed to
totally.
be evergreen and a long term push opposed to a short term burst, right?
Yeah.
Of activity.
When you're
So
mature,
yeah,
when you're starting up, you should be laser focused on the thing that you enjoy doing and make sure it works. And once it works and you validate it works and you enjoy doing it, double down, double down, double down until you exhaust it.
no, I agree. I agree.
Okay.
I always recommend like a test and learn approach, right? So that's the way I take it when I even help businesses on my end. But it's important to know that you can't do all five of these things in one go. It needs to
No.
be when you're younger, right? and much smaller, you don't have the resources to do that. So you have
Yeah.
to like take it intentionally and take it step by step. So how do I think attribution, coming back to that, because that's like the essentially the bullseye everyone always wants to talk like, or hit, I guess. Every marketer dreams of getting attribution correct, right? But I think it's based off of the way things have changed because of the way people are thinking about it, especially marketers should be thinking about it. So, are there any? How does someone create that sort of multi attribution, strategy or model using social? Right. Um, we know that we can test. We know that we can track a lot of our activity using UTM's. We know that we can use a connected system, maybe have it connected to our CRM and somehow feed the data
Mm.
through. But how can you do you think it's more of an understanding thing in order to get it right opposed to just a system?
First of all, I think you have to come to to be at peace with the fact that you're going to miss a lot of events.
Agree.
Your tracking, your attribution is going to be vastly imperfect, and you have
Yeah.
to be at peace with that, and you have to be okay to do it anyway. Because what I see sometimes that people say, we don't measure, we don't attribute anything, we don't do anything because it's only a fraction of what's really happening. And my message to them is always the same. I say, okay, yeah, I understand. Attribution and tracking, whatever you do it, first touch, last touch, multi-touch, variant touch, or whatever touch you want to decide. And at the end of the day, there's no one that's good and another that's bad.
No one size fits
There's
all. Yeah.
one that makes sense for you based on what you expect, and there are others that makes less sense. Once you've made up your decision, I think we were first touch for a long time, and now we're last touch for some reason, and we'll change that probably. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we see things and we see patterns, and we understand that we see the tip of the iceberg of what's happening behind the scene. We totally understand this is the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
But what I tell my team and what I tell everybody who tells me I don't want to measure because I don't think I can't measure everything. So what's the point?
Yeah.
I tell them you're gonna measure tips of icebergs, but if you don't see a tip, there's probably no freaking iceberg. So you still want to see the tips to know that, oh, I know that's only a tip, but there's probably an iceberg underneath that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look at the different size of tips that I'm measuring and decide based on that. So if you look at those tips, like, oh, we got 3 demo requests from our LinkedIn post last month, we know it's more than 3. But if we got 17 from Facebook, I'm throwing this up, this out there. It's probably not impossible.
Hypothetical. Yeah.
It's probably impossible in B2B. But let's say that you have 17 on Facebook and you have 3 on LinkedIn. Okay, it's
Yeah.
only and you have 300 demo requests a month. So 17 and 3 is very small. But this is sending you a signal that Facebook is working better for you than LinkedIn. So that's where you should focus more of your attention. And that's how I'm using attribution and measurement. It is not to report on everything we do on LinkedIn, which is expensive, time consuming, and so on, brought us 3 conversion. Or on Meta on Facebook brought us 17. It is just to make a decision on, okay, we're gonna increase the budget and the time we spend on Facebook and decrease the budget and the time we spend on LinkedIn. But at the end of the day, we don't use that to give value to the effort and the work that we do on all of those channels or email or whatever that is. I think that's the key, because if you are trying to I've been sold that a tool would solve all my problems so often in my life. When we purchased HubSpot in 2016, it's going to be the source of truth, the unique source of truth. We finally are going to know. We're not going to be blind anymore. Like,
No.
anyway,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, it wasn't true. And then I was told, okay, now we need Salesforce, and Salesforce plus HubSpot. It's going to save us. We're going to have the source of truth, unique source. It's going to be amazing. We're going to know everything. Spoiler alert, still not true. At the end, and now we need to build a data lake and then connect that data lake, have a team of data people, which is costing me, I don't know, 400K a year or 500K a year or something like that.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's better. It's helpful, but it's still not telling me the whole story about everything that's happening in the back end.
Yeah.
So once you understand that you're never going to have that, but you need to have some of that so you can make educated guesses about what's working with your marketing, you're already a lot better than
Yeah,
most people.
I agree. I think what you mentioned as well is that when we're more intentional about how we're using the data to measure certain things and make decisions,
Mm,
that's always going to have the most impact later on, right? For the team, for the business, and on revenue overall, right?
right.
So I have, Emery, there's a lot of detail we've like sort of unpacked here, but obviously the intentional side of why we're using social media, the type of content that we're producing and pushing on these platforms, and then how we've talked a bit about how you can track some of those activities as well, especially if you're a young business. But one last question is, what systems should smaller SaaS software businesses do you think use to like sort of connect social activities to their CRM and sales data? Are there any outstanding ones? And of course, you can throw Agora Pulse in the mix if you want. But yeah, from what you've seen,
So B2B specifically, right?
yeah. Let's. I think if we just keep it B2B for now.
Yeah. So Google Analytics for Google Tag Manager, tag your website. Make sure that everything you give away to your ideal customer profile is on your website and is tagged right, so you can track everything that's
Yeah,
happening there. That's tool number one. Don't even for social media, this isn't mandatory. Obviously, it will be very useful for paid and email and everything else that you're doing,
yeah,
but that's number one. Number two, when you share those on social or your stories or anything, make sure that you have a link strategy in your mind. You don't want to put a link in every post that you post on LinkedIn, because at the end of the day it won't work, because you're gonna be stuck at some point. I want to tell a story about this, but there's no link that makes sense. Then don't put a link. That's fine. You don't have to put a link in every
yeah,
one. I think 1 out of 3 is more than enough. um, and learn UTMs and tracking. So then you can connect the GTM and Google Analytics and have some idea of what works. So that's number 2. And number 3, leverage your team. Like, do advocacy. You don't have, again, you don't need a tool. Of course, the tool is going to help, going to save you
yeah,
time. But before you decide to invest in a tool, do it. Go on Slack and say, hey guys, can you share this link? And here's the UTM. Please just change in the UTM, in the campaign thing, just put your first name. Like, just change your name. Here's a UTM, blah, 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 campaign equal Neil
yeah,
underscore LinkedIn. Just put Emeric underscore LinkedIn. Please just do that. And can you post that on LinkedIn? Post this content on LinkedIn with this photo, video, whatever, and use this link. Just change that in UTM. And that way you can go and say, oh, Neil got me 3 downloads. That
yeah,
works. Hey, Neil, amazing. Good job.
yeah.
Those are the 3 things you should think about when you think about a social strategy as a beginner B2B digital business.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Actually, one that I might test because I've never tested looking at an individual person, like tracking an individual person, because
Mm.
there is something that I'm running at the minute that could work on. So thank you for that. But yeah, it's been like again, it's been an interesting conversation. I know we're at like sort of time now, but there we sort of have it, everyone. You can take, even with limited resources, you can actually have connect the dots between social media marketing and your revenue source for your business activity. But you're allowed to actually, there are multiple ways of doing this. There's no just one way. And I think if you follow some of the attribution frameworks and some of the tips that Emeric has kindly provided as well, and some of the approaches that Emeric actually takes on today, you should be able to wait. You should be on your way to sort of demonstrating ROI, within your team and amongst yourselves, as with the business leaders, and take more away from your social media activities, right? But no, thank you, Emeric. It's been amazing and insightful, and I feel like it's definitely something that loads of people can take something away from. But what I want is that if, in case anyone has any questions, um, of course, I'm going to list for the tool, for the Agora Pulse tool, because it looks like a pretty nifty tool as well. Um, I'm going to link that in the description below, of course, so everyone knows where to find the tool. But if anyone wants to connect with you or anyone from the team, where else can they go?
You can go on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn,
Yeah,
fantastic.
just send me an invite and add a note to the invite saying, "Hey, I heard you on a podcast, Neil's podcast, or on a podcast." Just with podcasts, I know where it's coming from. You don't have to remember which one.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
That
Just
way I know that, and I have a question. That way I know, because I got a lot of invitations on LinkedIn. Obviously, I cannot say yes to everyone. So if there's no note, it's unlikely that I will accept it. If there's a note and I know where you're coming from, I will accept it.
There we go. So I think what I'll do is I'll add those links below, and I'll also add Emeric's LinkedIn below as well. But no, thank you everyone for tuning in, and Emeric, thank you once again for coming on. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome.
But we'll see you guys in the next episode. So take it easy and see you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks, Neil.